Sorry, a Ghosts Movement essay. We carry unfinished things for longer than we realise. They sit quietly in the background of our days, not always loud enough to demand attention, but present enough to shape how we move. A thought that returns when we are tired. A name we hesitate before saying. A message we never sent. A conversation that ended badly or never ended at all. These are not always dramatic moments. Sometimes they are barely visible, but they stay. Life has a way of continuing regardless. We still wake up, make plans, show up for work, cook meals, laugh at the right moments. From the outside, things look normal enough, yet something keeps catching, like a drawer that never quite closes properly. We adapt around it, but the effort accumulates. This is often where the word sorry begins to hover, not as confession, not as virtue, but as possibility. Sorry is one of the simplest words we have and one of the most loaded. It can mean regret, responsibility, empathy, surrender, or nothing at all. We say it automatically when we bump into someone, even if we were not at fault. We say it when we do not know what else to say. We say it when we want the tension to ease. Because of that, it is often dismissed as weak, meaningless, or insufficient, and sometimes it is. But sometimes sorry is not trying to do very much. Sometimes it is simply trying to let life move again. Most of us are not carrying a single, unresolved thing. We are carrying many. Some are small irritations that never found their moment. Others are heavy, formative experiences that changed how we see ourselves and others. Some are old, some are recent. What they have in common is not their scale, but their unfinishedness. Unfinishedness has a particular quality. It does not stay in the past. It leaks into the present. It shows up in hesitation, in guardedness, in impatience that surprises us, in a sense of being slightly off centre, even on good days. We may not think about the original event very often, but our body remembers the pattern, our nervous system stays alert, our relationships adjust around the missing piece. This is where many people get stuck, not because they do not want to move on, but because moving on feels like a betrayal of what happened, a betrayal of their own anger, a betrayal of the part of them that knows a line was crossed. Anger, in this sense, is not a problem to be solved. It is information. It is the body remembering that something mattered, that a boundary existed, that a violation occurred. Letting go too quickly can feel like erasing that truth. At the same time, carrying unresolved anger is exhausting. It demands energy. It keeps the past close. It limits what feels possible in the present. Many people find themselves caught between two loyalties, one to the truth of what happened, and one to the need to keep living. This is where the idea of forgiveness often enters the conversation, and this is where things become complicated. Forgiveness carries a great deal of moral weight. It suggests generosity, maturity, even transcendence. It often implies that something has been understood, integrated, or resolved. For some people, forgiveness is meaningful and freeing. For others, it feels premature or impossible. Sorry sits differently. Sorry does not require resolution. It does not require agreement. It does not require understanding. It can be clumsy, partial, imperfect. It can be spoken without certainty. It can be offered without knowing what comes next. That is why sorry often appears not at the end of a process, but at the point where someone wants to stop carrying something alone. Sometimes we want an apology because it would acknowledge reality. Sometimes we want to offer one because we can feel how much weight is still being carried. Sometimes we want to say sorry, not because we believe we were entirely wrong, but because we want to clear space. This is where life housekeeping begins. Housekeeping is not about virtue. It is not about being the bigger person. It is not about erasing harm or excusing behaviour. It is about tending to what has been left in the hallway of our lives for too long. Housekeeping recognises a simple truth. Unfinished things do not disappear on their own. They either get addressed or they continue to shape how we live. For many people, the desire to move on is not a denial of what happened. It is a recognition of what staying stuck is costing them. The body knows when something has been carried long enough. Trauma awareness matters here, and it needs to be named plainly. Trauma is not defined only by catastrophic events. It is defined by experiences that overwhelm our capacity to process and integrate what happened. When something remains unintegrated, time does not move cleanly. The event stays present. This is why telling someone to just let it go does not work. Letting go is not a decision, it is an outcome. It comes after something has shifted. Sometimes that shift comes through understanding. Sometimes it comes through being believed. Sometimes it comes through change in the other person. And sometimes it comes through action taken by the self. Action matters more than we often admit. We tend to think that emotional resolution must come first, and behaviour will follow. But in real life, it is often the other way around. Movement creates space. Space allows feeling to change. This is why the simple act of reaching out can be powerful, even when it feels risky. Picking up the phone, sending the message, saying hello, not as a demand, not as a plea, not as a guarantee of reconciliation, but as a first move. For many people, the hardest part is not what comes after. It is making the move itself. The moment of hesitation holds everything. Fear of rejection, fear of reopening pain, fear of looking weak, fear of being ignored. And yet, when the move is made, something shifts internally, regardless of the outcome. If the message is met with warmth, something softens. If it is met with silence, something still changes. The silence is no longer frozen. It has been touched. This is an important distinction. Silence after an attempt is different from silence that has never been challenged. One keeps us waiting. The other lets us stand where we are. Sometimes the sorry we need to say is not to the other person at all. It is to ourselves. Sorry for carrying this alone for so long. Sorry for waiting for perfect conditions. Sorry for expecting closure that never came. This is not self-blame. It is self-recognition. Many people remain stuck because they are waiting for permission to move on. Permission from the other person, permission from the past, permission from an imagined future where everything finally makes sense. Housekeeping does not wait for permission. It works with what is available. That does not mean everything should be reopened. Safety matters. There are situations where contact would cause harm, where boundaries exist for good reason. Housekeeping is not reckless. It is discerning. But for many, the weight they carry is not danger. It is unfinishedness, and unfinishedness keeps life paused. We do not talk enough about the cost of staying paused. The cost shows up quietly, in reduced intimacy, in cautiousness, in a life that works but does not quite breathe. People do not always want healing. Often, they simply want less drag. This is why sorry persists as a word, despite its flaws. It is a lever, a way to loosen something enough for movement to resume. Sometimes the other person never responds. Sometimes they respond badly. Sometimes they respond better than expected. None of these outcomes erase what happened, but the act itself repositions the one who acted. They are no longer waiting. At the end of all this, there is no neat resolution to offer, no universal instruction, no guarantee. There is only a quiet truth. Life does not always wait for things to be finished properly. It keeps going. And sometimes moving on is not about agreement or forgiveness or repair. Sometimes it is about choosing not to let an unresolved thing remain at the centre of how we live. Sometimes it looks like standing in a kitchen, holding a phone, and deciding not to wait any longer. Sometimes it looks like saying hello, even if no one answers. And sometimes that is enough for something to loosen, just enough for the present to become available again. Not because the past was solved, but because we decided to move.